Good morning, my dear students. I am Dhiraj Mondal, Assistant Professor, JIS College of Engineering, Department of Mechanical Engineering. Today, we are going to discuss about the refrigeration and air conditioning, where the refrigeration components and control were discussing. So, last two classes, I have discussed about the compressor part. You know that in refrigeration and air conditioning, this chapter module 2, your refrigeration components and control part. So mainly four devices: compressor, condenser, expansion device, evaporator. It will be discussed. So compressor part, I have already completed the reciprocating compressor. I have completed the rotary compressor. Complete and last class we have also completed the centrifugal compressor. So the reciprocating compressor, you can see this is your reciprocating compressor, and how it is operated, that I hope it is clear how it is operated. And we have seen that by the help of the reciprocating motion of a particular motion of the piston, which is basically taking the energy from the shaft or mechanical work input, and by the help of that some refrigerant is entering. When the refrigerant is entering into the system, it is compressed and it is returned back to the, it is coming to the condenser, where it is condensed. Okay, so after the condensation, it is coming to the capillary tube, and here from the capillary tube, it is coming to the evaporator. So this is how it is operated. Now compressor, the types of compressor we have seen: reciprocating compressor, rotary compressor, centrifugal compressor, and screw compressor. So the reciprocating compressor part, discuss rotary compressor part. Here you can see the reciprocating compression, the figure. And the rotary compressor is, this is a vane type rotary compressor, where we have seen the spring loaded vanes which is sliding in the slot when the rotor drum is rotating, and the particular refrigerant is placing from inlet valve to inlet pipe to outlet pipe. Okay, so by the help of this eccentric shape of that particular eccentric move of the particular rotor. Okay, and from the spring load, we can see that a particular space is given to that to the inlet vapor refrigerant, and at the outlet we are getting some compressed vapor refrigerant at high temperature. Okay, so this rotary compressor, the four different figure is drawn here. So this, by the help of these four different figure, I can easily clarify the how the process is going on. And previous class you have seen. If you have not seen my previous lecture, see lecture number 22, that is your rotary compressor part. And then come to this lecture, because without knowing this part you cannot understand how the rotary compressor is rotary vane type compressor is operated. Now the rotary compressor in for your roller type rotary compressor, it is also shown in the figure. And again, by the help of this figure and four different point or position of that particular rotary roller type rotary compressor, I have shown that how it is operated and how it is working. So by the help of this four operation, a complete process is taking place. So very important, again this diagram you need to draw in your exam. Okay, how it is operated and the working principle, and where it is operated. We have seen it is basically for 5 ton capacity. For 5 ton capacity, this is required, and it is suitable for low pressure stage at multi-stage system. Okay, and what is the role of the vane? That means in case of vane, your vane type compressor, the volumetric efficiency we have seen 70 to 85%. This is your vent type, again I am showing you 70 to 85%, and it is used for the refrigerant R121 and R114. Okay, and the compressor is more suitable for the pumping refrigerant having moderate or low condensing pressure, and mainly it is used for domestic purpose. Okay, domestic refrigerator. So these are the two types of rotary compressor which already I have discussed. Now today, now after that it was discussed the centrifugal compressor. In case of centrifugal compressor, we have seen the volute casing, diffuser ring, driver shaft, impeller eye, vapor intake, your casing, and the compressed vapor represent to the condenser. So from the spinning impeller, it is entering the vapor represent is entering, which is coming from the evaporator, and what happened? It is basically by the help of the centrifugal action, the particular operation is done. Okay, and at the outlet we are getting high pressure vapor, your refrigerant. Okay, so in case of a single stage centrifugal compressor, the compression ratio, I told you that the compression ratio that an impeller can develop is limited and about 4.5, and when the high high compression ratio is required, multi-stage centrifugal compressor with intercooler are employed. Okay, and a centrifugal one more important thing, that the centrifugal compressor have no valves, piston, and cylinder. Okay, and the main bearing are only the wiring part. Okay, so that is the main thing, and the merits and demerits I discuss little bit, even though I would like to mention it, the what is the merit and demerit in details. So due here, the first merit was your due to the absence of unbalanced masses, this compressor operates with little or no vibration. So unbalanced mass, that means here there is not any kind of unbalanced mass. Okay, so due to the unbalanced absence of unbalanced masses, the compressor operate with no vibration. If there is any kind of unbalanced mass, then there may be some variation of mass also, that vibration may occur. Okay, so that is not any kind of problematic situation is not faced, because there is not any kind of unbalanced masses. Okay, and another one merit, it can be described that as compared to the reciprocating compressor, this compressor due to high speed can handle large volume of vapor refrigerant. Okay, so if I am comparing the reciprocating compressor, this compressor due to high speed, okay, the impeller is rotating, okay, at high speed, and it can handle large volume of vapor refrigerant. Okay, so this is another merits of that particular centrifugal compressor over reciprocating compressor. Okay, and next is your working life is more. Okay, the working life of the centrifugal compressor is more owing to the absence of the valve, as we know that there is not any kind of valve, any kind of piston, any kind of cylinder, connecting rod, etc. So only the wiring part is the main bearing. Okay, so main bearing is the wiring part. So that is why we can say that the working life is more. Okay, next point number 4, operation is quiet and calm. That means the operation is taking place peacefully, and we will see that there is very less amount of noise and also all this. Okay, and next merit, I can say that this compressor can directly connected to electric motor or steam turbine as they run at high speed 300,000 rpm and above. Okay, so by the help of steam turbine also this compressor can be operated. Okay, directly can be operated. Now next is your Next, next merit is your constant high efficiency we can get if I'm comparing with the reciprocating compressor. And number seven number advantage is the as compared to the reciprocating compressor, the large size centrifugal compressor requires less floor area. Okay, so if I'm comparing with the reciprocating compressor, the large size centrifugal compressor requires less floor area. So these are the advantages. Another one advantage is I would like to mention here, that is specially adapted for system ranging from 50 to 5000 ton. Okay, so these are the ranges. Okay, the 50 to 5000 ton. And also it is also employed to temperature ranges minus 90 degrees centigrade to 10 degrees centigrade. Very very important, the temperature range is your minus 90 degrees centigrade to 10 degrees centigrade. So if you know the if you that means if I know the advantage, I should have to I should know the disadvantage also. So you know the surging, what do you mean by surging? Surging is the reversal of the flow of refrigerant from compressor to evaporator when the refrigeration load decreases. Okay, so here the surging occurs when the refrigeration load decreases to about 35% of the rated capacity and causes severe condition of the compressor. So at that time the the work required is, and that means your energy required is same, but due to that surging the capacity is decreasing here. So rated capacity is decreasing by 35%. At that time surging occurs. Okay, so this is an main disadvantage or demerits of that particular centrifugal compressor. Next point is the pressure increase per stage in less as compared to the reciprocating compressor. So pressure increase here, the pressure increase per stage is less as compared to the reciprocating compressor here. Next, your disadvantage is your practicable below 50 ton capacity load. Okay, above 50 ton capacity load it is not practicable, and require refrigerant which should have high specific volume that particular refrigerant requires. Okay, so this is the centrifugal compressor. And after that we will be discussing about the screw compressor. So what is screw compressor? So in the figure you can see that screw compressor is shown here. So here basically the screw compressor is shown in the figure. The helical, rotary or screw compressor is a positive displacement compressor in which compression is accomplished by the, you can see in the here the helical, rotary or screw compressor. You can see it is, and it is a positive displacement compressor uh, in which the compressor is accomplished by the emanation of the two mating helically grouped rotor suitably housed in the cylinder equipped with appropriate inlet and discharge port. Okay, the male rotor, you can see here in this part, the male rotor suitably housed in the cylinder equipped with appropriate the main rotor is normally the driving rotor. It is also called driving rotor and consists of series of lobes. Okay, usually four lobes you can see, series of lobe along the length of the rotor that mesh with similarly formed corresponding helical fluids. Okay, usually six. Okay, so helical fluids you can see it is usually six on the female driven rotor. Okay, so the as compare as the rotor turns, the gas is drawn through the inlet opening to fill the space between the male lobe and female fluid. Okay, as the rotor continued to rotate, the gas is moved past the suction port and sealed in the interlobe space. The gas so trapped in the interlobe space is moved both axially and radially and is compressed by direct volume reduction as the enmeshing of the lobe of the compressor progressively reduces the space occupied by the gas, and the compression of the gas continues the interlobe until the interlobe space communicate with the discharge port in the cylinder, and the compressed gas leaves the cylinder through these ports. Okay, so this is all about the of uh, working principle of the screw compressor. Okay, a screw compressor is available from 15 hp to 800 hp, and it applies to both halocarbon and ammonia refrigerant. Okay, I hope it is clear. So this is the working principle of screw compressor. I hope it is clear. By the help of this operation, a particular fluid or refrigerant, it is entering and it is discharging to the compressor, a condenser, and it is basically available from 15 hp to 800 hp, and it applies both the halocarbon and ammonia refrigerant. Okay, now next some scroll compressor I can discuss in this. This is your orbiting scroll roll motor shaft. You can see fixed scroll, orbiting roll, and discharge port. So by the help of this scroll compressor also sometime it is used. This is your scroll compressor. The intake low pressure refrigeration is entering into the suction line or suction pipe, then it is rotating after rotation, and you will see that this is the discharge or high pressure line. Okay, discharge pipe. So by the help of these hermetically sealed compressor also discussed last class in the first your lecture number 22 it is discussed. Condenser. So next is your condenser. You know that condenser is nothing but a heat exchanger, which basically removes heat of hot vapor represent discharge from the compressor, and the condenser is classified by three types: air cooled condenser, water cooled condenser, and evaporative condenser. Very important. Okay, so first of all you need to know the function of condenser. So the condenser is a heat exchanger in which desuperheating of high temperature vapor changes the phase from vapor to liquid, and subcooling of condensate occurs. Okay. However, in some cases, condensation may not be accompanied with desuperheating of vapor or subcooling of condensate. The heat exchanger should have the following features: it should be inexpensive, compact, strong, and light. Okay, so these features should have been there in the heat exchanger, and it should be easily cleaned and adaptable for replacement of worn out tubes, etc. And the manufacturer should be quick and the pressure drop should be minimum. Okay, so these are the four features. You can see that these features is needed when you are choosing one condenser, and it is nothing but a heat exchanger. Okay, and it is which removes the heat of hot vapor represent discharge from the compressor. So from the compressor we know that high temperature, high pressure refrigerant is entering, and it is condensate in the condenser. It is taking the latent heat from the high temperature high vapor vapor refrigerant, and by the help of some water cooling, by the help of some air cooling, or by the help of some evaporative cooling. So by the help of this process, the latent heat is taken, and some amount of heat is releasing to the surrounding, and at the outlet of the condenser we are getting high pressure, low temperature, liquid refrigerant. Okay, so I hope it is clear. Now the types of condenser already I have told you. The first is your the types of condenser. First is your air cooled condenser. Okay, so three types of condenser: air cooled condenser, water cooled condenser, evaporative condenser. As the name, you can see names imply air cooled condenser use the air as the cooling medium, and water cooled condenser use water as medium. And the evaporative condenser is the combination of the above, that is your combination of the two, water cooled and air cooled. So both the cooling process is taking place in case of evaporative condenser, and this should you can assume that this should be the most effective one. So air cooled condenser, so here the evaporative condenser already I have told you. Although this in this condenser there is some increase in the temperature of the air passing through the condenser, condensation of the refrigerant in the condenser result primarily from the evaporation of the water spread over the condenser. The function of the air is to increase the rate of evaporation by carrying water vapor, which results from the evaporative process. Okay, now one by one we will be discussing. So let us discuss. So you can see the air cooled condenser. The inlet pipe is here, and the tube portion is there, and the plate tube fins are there, and this is your outlet. So what happened? The from the inlet the air is coming. Okay, so and by the refrigerant is coming, and this is the outlet of the refrigerant. Now what happened? This is the inlet and this is the outlet. Now the when it is passing through this plate type fin, and this plate type fin is it is air cooled. Okay, it is cooled by air. So how it is working and what is the phenomena, let us discuss. You know that since the heat can flow only from a higher temperature medium to a lower temperature medium, the temperature of the condensing medium determines the condensing temperature. Okay, so the condensing temperature is the temperature at which the refrigerant gas turns into liquid state in the condenser. Okay, now the air cooled condenser is cooled by the ambient air. Whatever the air cool refrigerant is entering into this tube, the air cool in case of air cool condenser, it is cooled by the ambient air. The ambient air temperature will be higher than the temperature of water. Hence, the condensing temperature will be higher in an air cooled condenser than in water cooled condenser. Okay, so I hope it is clear. The condensing temperature will be higher in an air cooled condenser than the water cooled condenser. Okay, since the heat transfer efficiency of a heat exchanger increases when the heat transfer medium is liquid, therefore the heat transfer efficiency is a water cooled condenser efficiency is a water cooled condenser will be more than in an air cooled condenser. The comparatively poor heat transfer efficiency in of an air cooled condenser is to come extent offset by maintaining a higher temperature difference between the refrigerant and air. Okay, so this is the function. Now the selection of condenser, how we can select a condenser. The selection of a condenser depends upon the following factors. What are the factors? The capacity of the refrigerating system, the type of refrigerant used, the type of cooling medium available. So these are the capacity, these are the selection by the help of this method or condenser selection of condenser depends upon this following factor. Type of refrigerant you need to determine, and the type of cooling medium available, and the capacity of the refrigerating system. So okay, now let us discuss the factors affecting the condenser capacity. Okay, what are the factors which are affecting the condenser type? Let us discuss. The condenser capacity is the ability of the condenser to transfer heat from the hot water vapor refrigerant to the condensing medium, and the following are the factors. The material is also a factor of which the heat transfer capacity of the condenser is depending upon. So material, amount of contact. So material, how it is depending upon the material? Higher the ability of a material, higher the ability of the material to transfer heat, the smaller will be the size of the condenser. That means the thermal conductivity. So do you know that thermal conductivity Fourier's law? So when it is and that means in heat transfer subject, you have gone through Fourier's law. Q is equal to minus Ka dq dx by dt, rate of change of, it means from one wall to another wall, the thickness, it is depending on the thickness and the temperature gradient. So K is the thermal conductivity. The thermal conductivity is more like your aluminium or copper, gold, like this. Then the material, and that means the heat transfer capacity will be more. Okay, so higher the ability of a material to transfer heat, the smaller will be the size of condenser. Okay, next is your amount of contact. Okay, the condenser capacity may be varied by controlling the amount of contact between the condenser surface and the condensing medium. This can be achieved by varying the surface area of the condenser and flow rate of the condensing medium over the surface of condenser. Okay, so these are the amount of contact. Okay, so amount of contact is also depending upon, these are the factors which is where the condenser capacity is depending upon. Okay, now the I hope it is clear. The condenser capacity may be varied by controlling the amount of contact that means contact surface is, if it is more, then it will be more capable. Okay, and number last is your temperature difference. The temperature difference is more. If the temperature difference is more, with increase in temperature difference, the condenser capacity increases due to increased heat transfer rate, because you know that Fourier's law, Q is equal to minus K Q is equal to minus K dt by, sorry, dx by dt. So okay, dt by dx. So by the help of that if the rate of heat transfer is more, then capacity will be more. Okay, normally this temperature difference cannot be controlled. However, under difficult condition, devices are available that control condenser capacity by changing the amount of condensing surface and airflow rate. Most air-cooled condensers are designed to operate with a temperature difference of 14 degrees centigrade. Okay, so this is all about the factors which are affecting the capacity of the air-cooled condenser. The heat rejection factor is also you need to know. What do you mean by heat rejection factor? The heat rejection factor by the condenser per ton of refrigeration is a function of the evaporator and condenser temperature. The condenser has to reject heat absorbed at the evaporator, Rn. Okay, so and also the heat of the compression added to the system by the compressor. Thus the lead of the condenser QC is given as QC is equal to refrigeration effect plus work done. Okay, so Rn plus W, and the heat rejection factor for condenser is defined as the ratio of heat rejected at the condenser to the refrigeration effect. So heat rejection factor is equal to QC by Rn. QC is the heat rejection in the your condenser, and Rn is the refrigeration effect, and QC is equal to, mathematically I know, Rn plus W. So that 1 plus 1, and that means Rn plus W by Rn, so 1 plus 1 by COP, because COP is equal to desired effect by work input. So COP is equal to Rn by W. So 1 plus 1 by COP is equal to heat rejection factor. Thus this heat rejection factor is depending upon the COP, which in turn depend on the condenser and evaporator temperature. Okay, So the condenser and evaporator temperature and the heat rejection factor is depending upon the upon the COP, and also it is and also it can be said that it is depending on the condenser and evaporator temperature. Okay, the heat rejection factor is about 1.25 in an actual air conditioning equipment for R12 refrigerant, for R22 operating at the condenser temperature of 40 degrees centigrade and an evaporator temperature of 5 degrees centigrade. Okay, so this is the all about the heat rejection factor. So I hope it is clear. Now next class we will be discussing the more about the air cooled condenser and the water cooled condenser, evaporative condenser, and all this. So today up to this, thank you for listening. Jai Hind.